You ever see three bulldozers parked side by side across your driveway, like they're daring you to do something about it? Because that's exactly what I woke up to. And let me tell you, if you'd told me a year ago, I'd be screaming over the roar of heavy machinery at a woman in designer heels and a face full of Botox, I'd have called you nuts. But there she was, Judith Lane, the HOA queen herself, waving those eviction papers around like she was starring in some soap opera, surrounded by her little army of rent-a-cops, with half the neighborhood filming it all for their social feeds. And the punchline, not a soul out there had a clue that I was holding the real trump card, the deed to more land in this county than any of them could dream. Let me back up a sec just so you get the full picture. I left Atlanta's rat race years ago, bought a chunk of quiet out here, 20 acres, a weathered cabin, some goats, and enough garden rows to keep my hands and my mind busy. For 15 years, nobody bothered me, and I sure didn't bother them. But then this fancy HOA neighborhood popped up half a mile down the road. Mansions, manicured lawns, fancy mailboxes, the works. I figured, hey, live and let live, right? Until the first gold embossed letter showed up, telling me to clean up my unsightly farm equipment and cut my grass so I didn't drag down their property values. I just about choked on my coffee. I sent back a polite little note. Not in your HOA, thanks. Don't write again, thinking that'd be that. Yeah, that happened. Except the letters kept coming, getting meaner each time. The last one threatened legal action, and you know how it is. Stuff like that can start to worm its way under your skin. So I went into town and talked to Ben, my lawyer, old school guy, tough as nails, always smells like pipe tobacco, and knows everyone's business whether you want him to or not. But before I even got to his office, I ran into Judith at the general store talking real loud about how folks who can't afford HOA fees don't belong here. She barely looked at me, just flashed her fake smile, said I should be grateful for progress, then bought out all the organic tomato seedlings just to prove a point. That's the kind of woman she is. Things started moving fast. Surveyors at the edge of my fields, then a notice from the town slapped on my mailbox. My access road closed for improvements. No alternate route, just a bunch of legalese and a signature from some councilman who's been in Judith's pocket for years. That night, Mrs. Callahan, my neighbor since forever, called in a panic after a council meeting saying the HOA was claiming my land for their new expansion zone. I lay awake thinking about the old safe under my floorboards packed with documents from a life I'd left behind, and realized it was time to dust off those papers. See? After leaving the tech world behind, I'd use my savings to quietly buy up land around here little by little until I was sitting on enough acreage to make Judith's head spin, more than half the county, in fact. When Ben saw those deeds, his jaw nearly hit the floor. You own the dirt under her McMansion, he said, and I couldn't help but laugh. Then in walks Tessa the reporter for our tiny county paper. She'd just been demoted for poking into HOA finances, but she'd kept digging. The three of us started piecing things together, and the story was uglier than I'd thought. Embezzlement, phony signatures, backroom deals with developers from Chicago, all hinging on my farm's water rights. If Judith didn't get my land, her whole luxury resort scam would collapse. Guess who'd just become public enemy number one? The next morning I tried to sneak back to the farm early, but the bulldozers were already lined up. Crews in vests hammering in road-closed signs, Judith strutting around in a white pantsuit like she was running for Congress. She gave me 24 hours to remove my property as if I'd just walk away from the place I'd built with my own hands. She threatened me with every lawyer in the county, but I just started snapping photos and told her Who said anything about suing? That got under her skin. Her smile cracked for the first time. That night, things got nasty. Someone broke into my irrigation system, flooded the animal pens, lost 2 goats, and nearly drowned my chicken coop. I'd put in thermal trackers, and the cameras caught HOA compliance goons on my land clear as day with Judith, right there giving orders. I sat there holding that little goat, soaked and shaking, and for a second I almost gave in. But Tessa wouldn't let me. "This is how they win," she said, breaking your spirit. That's when we went on offense. I owned a little strip of land right across from Riverside Meadows entrance. So we put up a billboard, "Coming soon, Reed's Acres." No HOA, no bullies, just neighbors. Big phone number, big letters. The HOA crowd lost their minds. Judith called an emergency meeting, but this time the board started asking where all the money had gone. That's when Mark, a board member I'd always thought was a stuffed shirt, slipped me copies of receipts, thousands spent on Judith's house, her pool, even her daughter's wedding, all billed to the HOA. Tessa ran the story on the front page, and Judith lost it. She slapped both of us with a $2 million lawsuit and demanded my land for public use. But Ben, God love him, even fighting cancer, reminded me I still held the trump card. I'd bought out the HOA's debt from the local bank, so now I was their biggest creditor, and I could freeze every last cent they tried to spend. Judith's mask slipped. She started sending threats, vandalizing cars, anything to stay in control, but folks around town were getting wise neighbors I'd barely spoken to before started showing up asking if I needed help. Then Mark dropped the real bomb. Judith had already signed a secret deal with a Chicago developer, promising to sell the whole subdivision if she got her hands on my land. That would triple everyone's fees and strip out all their promised amenities. The HOA board flipped on her overnight. I called a press conference on the courthouse steps. Half the county showed up. Cameras rolling. I laid it all out, who I was, how I'd bought the land, and exactly what Judith had planned. Tessa dropped the final piece. Turns out Judith Lane was actually Janet Ellis, wanted in Florida for real estate fraud, and God knows what else. She tried to shout us down, but the sheriff was waiting, and they hauled her away right there on the steps. I'll never forget the look on her face, pure shock and outrage, like the universe had finally told her no. In the aftermath, I helped set up a new community council, promised to fund local services for 6 months while folks figured out what kind of future they wanted, keep the HOA, start over, or dissolve it completely. There was some grumbling, sure, some said I'd masterminded the whole thing just to buy cheap land. But I held an open forum, showed them my books answered every question. Ended up naming the new park after Ben. He lived just long enough to see justice done. Here's the twist, though. While cleaning up, Tessa found paperwork linking that Chicago developer to some real nasty business, money laundering, organized crime, the works. There's always another fight coming, you know what I mean? But for now, we're rebuilding. The barn's coming back up, the goats are back in the field, and the folks who tried to run me out are long gone. I walk that fence line every morning watching the sunrise over land my family never gave up on, and I wonder, what would you have done? Was I right to fight, or did I just stir up trouble for everyone? Drop your thoughts below. Right, wrong, justice. HOAs, tell me where you stand, because out here that's what really matters.